Good morning, everybody. I will call to order the Board of Franklin County Commissioners meeting for Friday, May 1st, 2020.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Present.
Commissioner Howard?
Present.
Chair Waymire?
Present.
Vice Chair Dickinson?
Present.
Commissioner Dunn?
Present.
All right, if you all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
nation,
one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all.
All right, our invocation today will be led by Reverend Bruce Beatty of the Church of the Nazarene in Ottawa. Good morning, Reverend.
Good morning. Are you able to hear me yet?
Sure can.
Okay. Well, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Holy Father, this is a day that you have given us, and we want to be able to be proper stewards of this day in all that we do and all that we say. Our world has definitely changed since the last time I was able to offer prayer before this commission. Would ask for your guidance, for your discernment, for your wisdom that come upon the commission in this meeting today. They are facing things that they probably never dreamed that they would face as a board of commissioners for the county. So we would just ask that you would lead and guide and direct them in all the decisions today, especially anything that would deal with the pandemic and this COVID-19 coronavirus that we're all dealing with. The state gave us opportunities to start the reopening this next week. We anxiously wait what this commission may have for us to make any adjustments in that line. Lord, bless the meeting, bless each one of the commissioners. We thank you for their leadership, for their diligence, and during this difficult time. So, Lord, bless and lead, guide and direct. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, thank you, Reverend. This is Commissioner Waymire speaking. Our next item would be public comment. Clerk, is there anybody signed up for public comment?
No, there is not.
All right. We'll move down to items of business. We only have one item of business today, listed as discuss and consider for approval Franklin County's COVID-19 reopening plan. That item really has two parts. We'll start with what the governor's order is that was put out last night and what it means for us here in Franklin County. And then the second half of that discussion would likely be what Franklin County's internal operations are and how reopening for our employees and our operations here internally. So we'll start with the governor's order and what it means for us. Derek?
Thanks, Colt. As all of you are aware, the governor introduced Executive Order number 2029 last night. This order goes into effect at midnight on May 4th. And the purpose of the order is to implement phase 1 of the state's plan to reopen Kansas. Now, from the outset, I want to say, and we are going to blast this all over our website, all over social media, this order applies to everyone in Franklin County. Applies to individuals, applies to businesses, applies to activities. There's nothing that you can do as a board of county commissioners. There's nothing that Dr. Ransom can do as the public health official to lessen the restrictions placed in this order right here. We're going to get a lot of calls in the coming days about, why this business can't open, why that business can't open. I want to be very clear. These aren't decisions that are being made by Franklin County or its staff or its elected officials. And so after the governor's press conference last night, a team of county employees met. It's been the same team that has been guiding us through this COVID-19 pandemic, included myself, Alan Radcliffe, Tom Winters, Nick Robbins, Casey Brady, Janet Paddock, Dr. Budd, Colt Waymire was on the call, as well as a handful of other staff. Sheriff Richards on the call as well. we went through the governor's order and tried to ascertain, okay, given where we are at in Franklin County right now, given the number of active cases that we have, does this order provide enough protections for us, or do we feel like we need to add additional restrictions to the order to provide another level of safety for our people? And to be clear, the order does allow us to be more restrictive. So if we wanted to add if we wanted to close additional businesses, further restrict activities, certainly the order gives local governments authority to do that. That being said, staff is recommending this morning, and certainly I believe Dr. Budd is on the call. Staff is recommending this morning that the county not impose further restrictions at this time, that we merely abide by the state's executive order, which, as I said, will go into effect on May 4th. So if you wish to adopt staff's recommendation, there's really nothing for the Board of Commissioners to do this morning because this order is already going to go in effect. My intention is to kind of walk down through the order and just hit some of the highlights and start up a discussion. The five of you can ask questions at any time. My staff certainly is welcome to chime in as we go through this if need be. And then at the end of the discussion, if the five of you are content with the level of restrictions in this order, then no action will be needed. Are you fine with that, Commissioner Waymeyer?
You bet. Go ahead.
Okay, so this particular order, as I said, really covers just phase one of the governor's plan. One of the first things that the order does is that identifies and defines mass gatherings. So under this order, mass gatherings of more than 10 individuals are prohibited. But we need to really carefully go over what the state is defining as a mass gathering. They're saying that it needs two things. It needs individuals in one location, and is a very critical word here, and those individuals must be unable to maintain a 6-foot distance between themselves. And so my interpretation of that is if you have 20 people in a room, but those 20 people have a 6-foot distance between them, then you don't have a mass gathering of 10 or more. Yeah, you've got 20 people, but you've maintained that social distancing requirement, and so you're fine. Practically, what that means is, all of you know, churches have been a topic of controversy and holding services. And you know, do we limit them to 10? Do we not? Under this order, provided social distancing requirements are met, you know, a church can have 20, 30, 40, 50 people. We just need to make sure they're staying apart. If the state gives further guidance on this, then certainly we will, my interpretation will change based on the states. I mean, this is such a fresh order. We haven't seen a bunch of guidance yet, but to me, that language is very clear. And so social distancing is really important under this order, and it's important in identifying what a mass gathering is. Moving through the order, there is a list of business restrictions. And it's important to note that generally speaking, under this order, unless you are one of the businesses that is expressly prohibited, then you can open. You just have to meet certain requirements. The primary one, of course, is that 6 feet of distance between customers. You also have to follow certain cleaning and public health practices practices, and those are all detailed on the state's website at covid.ks.gov. That's covid.ks.gov. That website is what should be consulted by businesses, by individuals who have questions about businesses. And when we get calls, it's highly likely, depending on the nature of the call, that is the website we are going to be referring folks to. Additionally, there's industry-specific guidelines on that website. So there will be specific guidelines for restaurants, specific guidelines for retail. And so certainly I would encourage business owners to check that out. There are a list of businesses that are still prohibited under this order. Bars and nightclubs are still not allowed to open. They can continue offering curbside and carry-out services, but the bar portion, the nightclub portion, is still prohibited under this order. Theaters and other indoor leisure spaces are prohibited under this order. Indoor leisure spaces, they give a couple of examples like trampoline parks and arcades. One of the questions that came up in our meeting last night was, would this include the bowling alley? And the staff's interpretation of this provision would be yes, that it would. And so under our interpretation, the bowling alley would not be allowed to open under the state's order. Fitness centers and gyms are still prohibited under this order. And then finally, nail salons, barbershops, hair salons, tanning salons, other personal service businesses are still prohibited under this order. So all of the aforementioned businesses under phase 1 of the government's plan are still prohibited from opening up. I continue moving through the order. There's another list of places or activities that are also prohibited under phase 1. Community centers are not allowed to open. Fairs, festivals, carnivals, parades, and graduations, importantly, are still prohibited from occurring under phase 1 of the government's plan. So I think about the Franklin County Fair. It may be the case that we are out of phase 1 by the time that event occurs. And if that's the case, then the provisions of phase 2 are going to govern. And so perhaps that may be allowed. I have not familiarized myself with phase 2 yet, but if we are still in phase 1 when our local fair rolls around, or when the smaller cities have their fairs, then this order would prohibit those from occurring. Swimming pools are another place that is prohibited under this order. And so pool here in town, for as long as we are in phase 1, they are prohibited from opening. Organized sports facilities and tournaments. You think about Orlis Cox and all of the activities that occur there under this order, those are prohibited from occurring during phase 1. This isn't meant to be an all-inclusive list of things that are prohibited. There are others that are delineated in this order, but I'm really kind of hitting the ones that staff have gotten questions on throughout this process. And those are really the highlights. The governor and her staff are going to be who makes the determination on whether we stay in phase 1, whether we advance to phase 2. And so there's really nothing, again, that the Board of County Commissioners, the public health officer, we just don't have a say in that. We are all subject to this order. With that, if you have any questions, certainly my staff and I are here to help answer them.
This is Commissioner Dickinson. Just for information only, fairs are still not allowed in phase 2. And are we going to revisit this every time the governor moves to a new phase? Or are we just going to kind of just go with it and go with the flow?
I would recommend that we revisit it. Just if nothing else, it gives us a platform to help educate our citizens on what each phase entails. And further, it is entirely possible that we revisit this again before phase 2. If we have an outbreak in this community, as I said earlier, this order gives us leeway to impose further restrictions. And that's one of the things we discussed last night with Dr. Ransom. If we have an outbreak, it may very well be possible that we come back in front of the board and ask you or let you know that Dr. Budd is inclined as the public health officer to impose a set of further more robust restrictions, so to speak. We don't have intention of doing that at this time because we don't have evidence of an outbreak, but know that that's a possibility.
This is Commissioner Dickinson again. We know that whenever we open the county, we're going to have an upsurge in cases. One of the reasons that we closed the state down was so that we could become better prepared. Maybe this question is for Dr. Budd. Does he feel like our medical facilities are prepared for an uptick in cases? I know at one time the county only had a handful of respirators available. And as far as PPE, are we in a good place?
This is Dr. Ransom. I think we are. I think we have adequate respirators. I think the supply of PPE has increased. I think we should be okay. I am hopeful we won't have such a surge in cases that it would really cause us to have a deficiency in those things. I don't anticipate that happening. I am not going to be surprised if we see a few more cases. I think we're in a position to handle it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Derek before we move along? All right, go ahead, Derek.
Okay, well, if there are no other questions on this, I would ask my staff that are on the call, particularly Nick or Alan, do you have anything, or Dr. Ransom, do any of you have anything to add about this plan that hasn't been stated?
I don't have anything additional to add. This is Nick to the plan. I think you explained it well. And I echo Dr. Ransom. We have enough PPE, and I feel the hospital has a good plan if we do see increased cases that need hospitalized.
This is Alan Radcliffe, and I agree with Derek and Nick and Dr. Ransom. I think we're in a good position for phase 1 and to follow the governor's executive order.
Okay, thank you, Alan. I will talk. Oh, go ahead, Roy.
This Commissioner Dunn, I feel like there shouldn't be any, that I can think of, any further restrictions than what the governor's come out with.
This is Commissioner Dickinson again, and just to make it clear to everyone, we cannot move to phase 2 before the governor's mandate to do that. Even if we're in a good place, We are not allowed to move in that direction. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. But that is not, there's not a local government in the state that has any say in that, Commissioner Dickinson. That will be determined exclusively by the state of Kansas based on the matrix that is stated in her plan, which talks about needing a stable or declining rate of COVID-19 cases over a 14-day period, decreasing number of COVID-19 admissions in hospitals, and a decreasing number of deaths. And so we have talked about this phase-in plan historically as being in 2-week periods. That's what we've seen at the federal level when this phasing in plan first came out. That being said, and Dr. Ransom, please chime in here if you disagree, but it's certainly a possibility, if not a likelihood, that this first phase lasts longer than 2 weeks, simply because I'm not sure the number of cases in the state of Kansas is currently declining. Like, I don't have the most recent data in front of me, but I feel like we are still on an uptick. Dr. Ransom, what are your thoughts on that?
Obviously, there's a lot of increased number of cases, especially in Southwest Kansas and in the more populous counties. So I think you're right. I don't think we'll enter phase 2. I would be surprised if it's before 4 weeks, but that's going to be up to the governor. It's certainly, I would be shocked if we entered it in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Dr. Ransom. So Commissioner Waymire, I'm going to try to put a bow on this a little bit. I am not hearing anything from any of the 5 commissioners that would indicate to me that you wish to impose further restrictions on the state's order. And if that's the case, if you are content with it as it is written, then that is literally all we need to do on this particular item. And so if my understanding is incorrect, please speak up now. Otherwise, I'll recommend we transition on to our workforce reentry plan.
Can I make a
This is Commissioner Howard.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead,
This is Commissioner Howard, and I think that I'm definitely think it was an excellent order by the governor, and I think they covered it very well. I'm not worried too much about the phase 2. I think the state will make sure we're in a good place before they move on to that. I'm fine with the state order as it was presented.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Dickinson. I heard you speak.
Yes, I did. I just wanted to make a quick statement. I just think we need to remind everybody that as we start going into phase 1, that we are not going back to the way it was before COVID-19. If you are at risk or you are close to an at-risk individual, you need to stay isolated. If you start going out and enjoying some non-essential services, you need to still wear your mask and wash your hands and maintain social distancing and all those things. Otherwise, this is not going to work.
Excellent.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to give a big shout out to the COVID-19 team, those individuals that have been our leaders in this. And Chair Waymire, appreciate your leadership through all this. I know you've had additional responsibilities, and this is not what you signed up for when you accepted the chair. But I think you've done an excellent job and have made great decisions. Just thank you. I did have one question as far as the commission is concerned. At what phase will we return to the chambers for or is that going to be discussed in the next segment?
Yeah, we'll touch on that, Commissioner Dickinson, with our workforce reentry plan.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. That's an excellent, this is Commissioner Waymire. I think you made an excellent point. Above all, taking responsibility for your personal safety is paramount. So, Commissioner Stottlemyre, would you like to say anything before we move on to the next phase of the conversation?
Yeah, I like to feel that our board and our leadership board there on this has kept the commissioners well informed of every step and every move, and I commend them for that. I think it's very important. I know we don't get to see each other, so I'm glad that we do keep well informed by our staff, and I think they've done a good job at it. And I feel that the governor's probably did as good a job as she can do at this point. That's all I got.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Waymire. All right, Commissioner Dunn, anything you'd like to say before we leave this phase of the conversation?
Just like I said before, I don't think we need further restrictions. Just go by what the governor's orders say.
All right. This is Commissioner Waymire. I think Derek's done a great job of recapping what the governor's order was and how it affects us here locally, and he's let everybody know where that information is available. So go ahead, Derek. Let's move on to kind of our internal operations here at Franklin County and how that is, what our plan is.
Thank you, Commissioner Waymire. So you should have in front of you our workforce reentry plan. I emailed it to you last night. This really involves two things. It involves the plan for county employees, and in that regard, it's not applicable to the public. But it also does discuss building access and what our intention is there. I am really going to just touch on the highlights of this, primarily just the portion having to do with building access, as the other information really speaks for itself. During phase one, it's pursuant to this plan, it's our recommendation that we keep buildings closed to the public. The building that in particular that I think it's important to discuss is the historic courthouse, because we offer a lot of services out of that building. We had a very productive conference call with the county clerk, the county treasurer, register of deeds, the appraiser, staff in that building, and they are all bought into this plan. Keeping the buildings closed to the public during phase one gives us time to fortify those buildings, so to speak. We are in the process of acquiring plexiglass barriers that we can put up. Gives us more time to make sure we have the masks and all of the other things, the gloves, the sanitation, that we're going to need. And so that's the recommendation for phase one. I think it's something the board should certainly discuss again. This isn't specifically laid out in the plan, but just off the cuff, my thoughts are that we would continue the teleconferences during phase one, as opposed to bringing all the commissioners back into the chamber. But I think that is absolutely up to the five of you. And so I think this would be the appropriate point to discuss that. So Cole, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Well, I'd like to go kind of down the roll call list and hear from everybody about what your thoughts are. Before we do that, I would want to point out that it says specifically in phase one, our outward message, the optics of what we're doing is that in phase one, it says work remotely if possible. So keep in mind that if we choose something different for us, we're going to have to kind of reconcile that. So we'll start with Commissioner Stottlemyre.
Yeah, I'm just as anxious as anybody to get back to work in our own office, but I do believe this is probably the way to do it, at least through phase one, the way we're doing it right now.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Dunn?
The only question I have, a lot of organizations have gone to taking people's temperature before they let them back in. Has that been a consideration during this process?
It has been a consideration, Commissioner Dunn. We don't have that provision in this plan. It was discussed. If that's something that the commissioners feel strongly about, I suspect we could procure the equipment necessary to do that. We kind of leave it in our employees' hands and hope that they take personal responsibility for their lives and their behaviors. We do discuss employees who are running a temperature and that they need to stay home and notify the health department, their department head. But currently, we are not taking their temperature, or this plan doesn't provide for that.
This is Commissioner Dickinson. I know that the jail has already implemented that plan. So if department heads feel like it's important or necessary, they can definitely do that.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Dunn, did you have any other comments on whether or not, I guess your thoughts on whether the commission should reconvene in the chambers or continue via teleconference for phase one?
I'm kind of open to either way. Once again, I'm a little concerned that, if the commission meets, I'd like to have the public be able to meet, with us before we start meeting in the chambers. I'm fine the way we're doing it now, temporarily. The rest of the reentry to our employees looks fine to me.
All right, Commissioner Dickinson.
Yes, I'm fine with meeting. I'd love to see how much weight everybody's gained and what their hair looks like, but I'm good. I do have a question though. If we keep all of the, if we say all of the county buildings should be closed, does that include court? Are we saying during phase one that there will be no court proceedings?
That's an excellent question, Commissioner Dickinson, and that is not our call. Like, we're talking about the historic courthouse primarily, and that, as you know, court proceedings aren't held in that building. The district court and what happens there is an entirely different beast that isn't within our. We don't make the decisions on when those proceedings happen. We're responsible for upkeep of the building, but the chief judges and the state are responsible for when court proceedings resume.
All right. I'll be honest, I lost track. Did everybody get a chance to speak, all the commissioners on?
Commissioner Howard, not yet.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Howard.
Thanks for covering for me, Commissioner Dickinson. I'm fine with the way we're doing it. I don't see any reason to go back to the chamber right now. I think we should stick with the way we're doing it for phase one at least.
All right. Good. I think everybody got a chance to speak. Derek, is there anything you wanted to hear from us before you moved on?
Well, what are your thoughts, Colton, on where we should be meeting?
I definitely agree. If our kind of what the consensus is, I would agree that, if phase one, the plan is to work remotely, if at all possible, I think we need to, abide by that example. I think we would definitely have to reconcile our actions with our message if we didn't do that. So I think for phase one, we should continue the setup we have now.
Okay, thank you. And then the rest of the plan gets into phase two and phase three. I'm happy to discuss that. We can also touch on it, as we progress through these phases. Phase two provides for the option of opening our buildings to the public. Certainly, I would encourage the board to have another discussion at that time about potentially starting to meet in person. Our employees and what we're asking of them in phase one and phase two, it's largely the same thing. we are going to require our people who deal with the public to wear masks, because those are the best practices. And like you basically said, Chair Waymeyer, that we want to set a good example for members of the public. So we are not going to have a lot of public interaction in phase 1 because the buildings are closed, but to the extent it happens, we're going to have masks. And then in phase 2, when we go ahead and open up, we're going to wear masks as well. And so, but we'll follow all pertinent CDC and KDHE guidelines. We're going to have the plexiglass barriers installed by then. Been working pretty closely with Brandon Sands, my maintenance director, on a disinfecting plan for everybody's personal workstations. And so pretty happy with the workforce plan. The document speaks for itself. So unless there's further questions, I would ask that the board just vote to approve the plan as presented.
This is Commissioner Waymeyer. On requiring that the public wear face masks when I think it's phase 2, is that still part of the plan?
No, it is not. That was a provision in the earlier drafts of the plan, but as we discussed it as a team, we decided to remove that provision. We are encouraging the public to use masks, and we will be providing them hand sanitizer, and we will have masks if they choose to wear them, but we're not requiring them to under this version of the plan.
All right, thanks.
This is Commissioner Dickinson. I would just say that I give kudos to our employees. I have not had any complaints that any department has not been providing the services that they are there for. And many of them, especially the health department, has gone above and beyond. So I can't see that we're going to have a problem even moving through phase 1 and phase 2 of providing services. Good job, Franklin County.
All right. Go ahead, Derek.
Well, I don't have anything else to add, Chair Waymeyer. If the board doesn't have any questions, I would just ask for a motion approving the workforce reentry plan.
All right. So are there any commissioners who want to make that motion to approve the workforce reentry plan for Franklin County operations?
This is Commissioner Stottlemyre. I'll approve that.
All right. Is there a second?
Commissioner Dunn, second.
Commissioner Howard, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. All right. We have commissioner comments and board reports listed on this agenda. Of course, we just met 2 days ago. So is there any commissioners? I guess I'll go through the list so we don't all try and speak at the same time. But if anybody needs to update their comment or board report since we met 2 days ago, Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Not at this time, no.
All right. Commissioner Dunn?
No.
Commissioner Dickinson?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Howard?
I have nothing.
All right. Staff reports is not listed on our agenda, but is there anybody, I'll just go to Derek, and is there anything you need to update since we met Wednesday?
There isn't any update that I need to provide. I appreciate you circling back around. My staff on the phone, and I can run down through that list right quick as well. Alan, do you have anything you need to provide?
Not at this time.
Chief Robbins, anything you need to provide?
We don't have anything at this time. Thank you.
Dr. Ransom? Okay, he may have gotten off the call. Casey, you have anything?
I don't have anything.
Janet?
No.
All right, Chair Waymire, I think that covers my staff, my team.
All right, Sheriff.
This is Commissioner.
Sheriff Richards, did you have anything?
No, I do not. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Howard, I think it was speaking.
Yeah, I have one quick question. I'd even lost track what Mondays were where we're at. Being we're staying with this, are we still staying with the canceling of all study sessions?
That is another, and that's very much within the discretion of the board. We haven't been having study sessions, and I will tell you organizationally that has not posed a single issue, but certainly if it's the board's desire to have them, we can find a reason to have them.
Do you see anything coming up Monday that we need extra time to dive into and study that we couldn't get done on Wednesday's meeting?
As I sit here, Chair Waymire, off the cuff, no, I can't think of anything.
All right. So we'll wait maybe till, I guess, a few more hours after the meeting just to double check, but it looks very likely Mondays will be canceled. So, all right. With that, I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Commissioner Howard, I'll make the motion.
All right, Commissioner Howard made the motion. Commissioner Dickinson, would you like to second
Commissioner
it?
Dickinson, I will second it.
All right, all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.